finally did it. I took Sony's FX30 that I've been using for over a year and a half as my studio camera and my gig camera and replaced it with the Blackmagic Cinema Camera 6K. So if you've been hiding under a rock, Blackmagic is doing a crazy deal on the Cinema Camera 6K, especially if you buy it in this limited time offer. So I'll have a link in the description below if anyone's interested in seeing that. And if you're watching this down the line, sorry, it's not available anymore. But I bought this because at the $1575 price point here in the US, you really can't beat the features that the Blackmagic Cinema Camera 6K has. I mean, it's a full frame 6K camera. Doesn't really have great slow motion options, but for what I'm planning to use it for, it is pretty much a permanent studio camera that has XLRs because it has 48 volt phantom power. I could use this little Shure microphone, power it directly from the camera itself, and get really decent audio. I've been tinkering around with the idea of actually picking up a Blackmagic camera for quite a bit. Now, I've been using the Blackmagic cameras since the original Pocket, and I have loved Blackmagic cameras. I got the original Pocket, I got the 4K, the 6K, I've messed around with the Ursa cameras, the original Ursa, the Ursa Mini, the 4.6K, so on and so forth. I really do like Blackmagic. I ended up moving to Red in 2020 when the Komodo came out because I liked how small it was. I loved the form factor, and even though I had sold it after a few years, I even picked up another Komodo when I decided to simplify my collection. For a bit, I was using mostly Sonys after I sold my Komodo for the first time, and I went from having the Komodo and some Sonys and Blackmagics to really just all Sony cameras for a little bit. I was using two of these FX30s and an A7 IV. Work kind of changed for me, started doing more content creation based stuff, and it's part of the reason why I got rid of the Komodo. And then as that picked up, I decided to pick up a Komodo again earlier this year. And when that happened, I got rid of all my Sony cameras except for this FX30, but it created a problem, and that's where I'm getting at. I use this camera so much, this FX30, because of how small it is, how versatile it is. I was putting it as my studio camera, taking it off, putting it back on, taking it off, and it's kind of a pain, especially when a gig comes out of nowhere and I got to go film and then I got to go disassemble everything because, you know, I have the XLRs plugged in, I've got power plugged in, I have to go clear the media that I may not have cleared yet, where if I just had a dedicated studio camera, it kind of alleviates those problems. Now, the Studio G2 camera from Blackmagic that uses the original Pocket 4K sensor is micro four thirds. Been looking at that for quite a while. And then the sale comes out, $1575 for the full frame Blackmagic cinema camera. 6K uses L mount, so although a lot of people aren't, the biggest fans of L mount, it is a mirrorless mount, so it's a modern full-frame Blackmagic camera that has 6K B-RAW, which B-RAW is one of the best RAW codecs there is next to the R3D RAW. Even though I really like R3D, I really do like B-RAW as well. The compression, the file sizes, the Blackmagic color science compared to something like Sony. I mean, Blackmagic really has done well with their cameras, the way they look. Now, I don't know if them doing so well is why this camera's on sale, because it may have changed, as I do think that the Cinema Camera 6K was priced wrong. I think at $2,600, there's a lot of competition, especially that has autofocus and other features that this camera is just lacking. The cool thing about the Blackmagic is the fact that in this small and compact setup, you can film RAW internally. Now, I'm using this little SSD right here that I showed you earlier just because I don't have any CFB media yet, but it does what I need it to do. I'm filming full open gate 6K RAW here on the Cinema Camera 6K with this 70-200. I'm just getting some example footage because you really can't get a kit any smaller than this that shoots RAW. You know, if you're shooting on Red, you're gonna have a small camera if you're shooting on the Komodo, but you gotta go add a monitor. This camera has it built in. If you're shooting with an FX30 and you wanna get RAW, or an FX3, any camera that shoots external RAW, well, you gotta add that Atomos recorder and have it sit on top, and it's just more that you have to add to it. And then, of course, there is the whole thing where when you're shooting like this, I'm using the internal battery, which just does not last that long. So there are definitely trade-offs, but when I'm filming really quick like this, just getting example footage, I'm fine with bringing a few batteries. However, if I was using this on a gig, I would definitely be plugging in power to the AC, whether it's via power delivery, which I have some cords for, or just using D-tap, plugging it in. I'll leave this thing plugged in because it's gonna be on set for the most part. As I said, when I do take it out of the studio, probably either a B or a C camera. to the Red Komodo. I don't plan on using the Cinema Camera 6K that much outside of the studio, just because the whole point I bought it was to use it permanently in the studio. But there are going to be situations where I do want to use it as a B cam. Maybe I go on certain trips and I like having the EVF and internal RAW, where I may use it as a camera for run and gun situations. So that's why I'm taking it out here today, just to see how this thing performs. This camera's got a lot of power, raw power, in 6K being full frame, and just at this price point of around $1,600, it's really decent. I really hope when Blackmagic ends this sale, they kind of reevaluate the price positioning of this camera. That's really the whole thing that Blackmagic has with this camera right here. It's the value you're getting for the price. The 6K raw video, really great for the price, but when it goes back to 2,600, you're not really getting that same value for the price. Overall, I am excited to be finally shooting full frame here in the studio, as I've gone through multiple cameras, including the Sony a7 IV, and I just couldn't use them, not because the image quality stunk, but because they weren't cinema cameras. They didn't have all of the shutter speeds I needed. I need 180 degrees to film in here and not get strobing from my lights. I couldn't get that on the a7 IV, and so traditionally I need cinema cameras that can do that. The Blackmagic can obviously do that. It's completely within my budget to be able to have a camera that can just be my studio camera. Getting a camera like the FX3 just didn't make sense to have that as a studio-only camera, because buying a brand new FX3, you're encroaching on the price of something like a Red Komodo used. It just didn't make a lot of sense, and that's why I keep saying the value proposition that Blackmagic has with this deal on the Blackmagic 6K cinema camera is insane. It is a great value for the money, and it brings Blackmagic back to kind of what they've been known for many years as, and that's a disruptor that offers a lot of value with their products for the money, and they're doing that with this price. It's just going to be interesting to see what the camera ends up going back to price-wise. Does it go back up to the retail of $2,600? Do they lower it when they bring it back, and is it going to be $2,000, which I totally think they should do? Or does this thing end up getting discontinued with the Pixis coming out? I don't know, but I'm sure we're going to find out very soon. If you have any questions, anything I didn't go over, make sure to ask in the comments below, as I'm doing a lot more content using this camera on this camera. So again, make sure to let me know down below. If you got knowledge and value out of today's video, please make sure to hit that like, subscribe, and notification bell to keep up to date with the latest videos on the channel. And until next time, as always, thank you for watching. My name's Jeff Fagien, and I will see you in the next video.